plug his book. By the way, this is a really great book, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, and the End of the Soviet Union. Scott Ritter is a former UN weapons inspector, former Marine Naval intelligence officer. I'd also add author, and I would say expert on this Russia-Ukraine conflict. You can find Scott in a number of different places. He's been on YouTube. He's also over on Telegram. Scott, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yourself? You recovered from the hurricane?
Hey, you know what? We're doing better. You know, the last time I spoke with you, we both kind of went off on the priorities of our government and sort of the lack of awareness. I think the governor did a good job initially down here, but you know, once the campaign was over and the cameras were turned off, then you know, I saw guys rolling, you know, shopping carts down, you know, Estero Boulevard, which is on the beach, and you know, it breaks my heart because these people lost everything and they're trying to rebuild schools and they're trying to get a sense of normalcy back. Where I live, I'm about 25 miles more inland. So, you know, we had a lot of wind, we had a lot of tree damage, even some shingles come off the roof, but really it wasn't so bad, you know, and for me compared to what they had. So, to answer your question, you know, the area is slowly recovering, but it depends on where you are. If you're down Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel Island, things are not good down there. It kind of still looks like a war zone, and I think it's going to look that way for quite some time.
I think everybody should keep that in mind this holiday season while we are at home with our families and enjoying rightfully enjoying good times with families and the blessings that accrue with that. There are those who don't have that same fortune, and we should all send our thoughts to them.
Yeah. And, you know, there are a lot of charities set up, and FEMA, which is here, apparently all I hear is that people are waiting, you know, for FEMA after they fill out all the forms, and it's just another bureaucracy that I think too is influenced by politics. I hate to say that, but it depends who the governor is. If the governor of our state was a Democrat and they aligned with the current president and they believed in dumping lots of money into things like the war in Ukraine, well, I don't even know. Actually, I've heard rumors about our governor who he might be kind of a Mike Pence when it comes to foreign policy. So I have no idea. But the bottom line is there isn't a lot of love between our governor and the president. And I think that might be gumming up the works a little bit. But this is truly important. People's lives, their businesses, so many different things that happened. You can't imagine when this thing rolls through the devastation. If you've never seen like a Cat 4, which was really on the verge of being a Category 5 hurricane and hitting the shoreline at an angle and a trajectory, which just, you know, was the worst case scenario for a lot of people. So I echo your sentiments, Scott, as far as being grateful for what you have. And then also maybe, you know, sending a few bucks or saying a few prayers or whatever it is that you do, just to keep bucks.
bucks over prayers. Prayers are nice, but bucks actually put food on the table. And
yeah, well, you know, you got to say put some legs behind those thoughts and prayers. So I guess that's the way to do it. So since the last time we spoke, a couple of weird things happened last week, or I think it might have been even the week before. You know, the president took a little vacation over on the beautiful island of Nantucket, and you know, the entourage, they were driving these rentals from Hertz. And the weirdest story I think that I've heard this year, all of those vehicles magically and mysteriously catch on fire after the president has departed the island. And I'm thinking, we need a little bit more of an investigation, Scott, other than like Hertz, who said, yeah, we're going to look into what happened to those vehicles. The team here at Hertz, we're dedicated to transparency and getting to the bottom of things. And the news media, too, really gave this story a short shrift. I mean, this is the president of the United States, the supposed leader of the free world, although that's debatable right now. And I'm wondering what your take is on this. I've had a few people send me messages like, this looks kind of like foul play, or like someone's trying to send the president and his team a message. What say you, Scott?
If you want the God's honest truth, this is the first time I've heard of this story.
Oh,
So you're catching me totally off guard. I mean, let me try and understand. The president of the United States went to Nantucket.
correct.
Did the president ride in a Hertz rental car?
He did. He did.
Why? What happened to the beast? What happened to his presidential limo? His Secret Service detail with their Mando vehicles, with the air defense systems, with the anti-ambush systems, and all this stuff. None of that went to Nantucket.
Apparently not. This is from Forbes magazine. It says here, less than a day after President Joe Biden left Nantucket following his Thanksgiving weekend, 5 Hertz rental cars hired by his Secret Service detail burst into flames in the airport parking lot, sending conspiracy theorists into overdrive. And so your comments about the beast and the usual I guess battalion, if you want to use that, I don't know if that's the correct word, of vehicles. I'm thinking the reason they probably didn't do that, Scott, is because they're on Nantucket. Now, they could have ferried those vehicles over there, because I used to live on the Cape. I know the area very well, and they could have certainly ferried those vehicles out there. President could have landed and then jumped into those vehicles. I'm thinking maybe this was a bit of a short-sighted move on the president and his team, but it is one of the most bizarre stories. And I'm sorry I caught you off guard on this.
Bursting into flames. Look, the Secret Service has a history of screwing things up.
Okay.
I mean, so maybe they left some pyrotechnics that were not stored properly. Who knows what's going on? I agree. I mean, five vehicles bursting into flames. That's not something that naturally occurs. So, and if the Secret Service was the last one to have possession of the cars, I'm thinking misplaced ordnance or something of that nature, and it's not something they. What I'm not going to do is say that this was a deliberate act by the Secret Service to cover up something. That's because that becomes a criminal act on their part. I mean, it's criminal to have misplaced ordnance as well.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, one of the conspiracy theories out there is that Russia is getting a little tired of the not being able to cooperate with the United States, or the lack of cooperation from the United States. And again, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not trying to be ultra controversial to get clicks and views here, but the timing of this and the precision of this, and if you look at the pictures, all the vehicles are kind of burned out from the front, as if the circuitry was triggered somehow and something happened in that regard. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I found it to be strange, and I found maybe this is one of the reasons that you hadn't heard the story, is that the media's coverage of this was just very quick and like, okay, on to something else. Let's talk about the latest bill that's going through Congress or something. But to me, this was I think a real huge breach in.
What it is, look, I'm going to defend myself by saying that I was in Michigan last week, and right. I didn't watch a single second of TV for 5 glorious days, and maybe that's why I missed the story.
All right. Well, fair enough. And, your explanation is, I do the same thing. Sometimes it's just like, you have to turn this crap off. But I just thought it was a fascinating story. And, I don't know. I don't know. The Russians, the theory that someone posed to me was that, hey, they're trying to send a message, to kind of knock it off, and whatever that means, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know if Russia would have that capability, or any country for that matter. I know with technology today, these are all modern cars. I'm assuming they have a lot of computer hardware on board, and anything can be hacked these days.
The
So
only thing I would say is this: if the Secret Service had them, there would have to be some modifications made to the cars to incorporate communications, some security features, etc. And maybe the Secret Service made some unauthorized modification to the wiring that wasn't undone. Who knows? Um,
yeah,
I don't think it's the Russians at all. And look, Russia just sent their president to the Crimea Bridge and to drive across. He drove his own vehicle, by the way.
wow,
So you know, Russia's not in the business of sending signals to heads of states in this manner because that puts their own head of state at risk.
yep,
Um, I mean, it's one of the reasons why they haven't killed Zelensky, because you don't go around killing heads of state. There's sort of an unwritten rule
right,
that that doesn't happen. So I there's because the other thing, when you send a message, I mean, if I want to send you a message and every time I send it, you're going, what the heck's he trying to say to me?
yeah,
That's not a very good message.
right,
So if I'm going to send a message, I have to make sure you at least understand the context of it. A horse's head in the bed.
yeah,
Okay. Give Frank Sinatra the role. The Godfather. You send a message, it works. But
right,
when burning cars, everybody's going, well, what's that about? Not a very good message.
yeah.
So,
Well, and that's what makes it kind of weird, and but it also makes it really interesting. Like, okay,
oh yeah, I'm now. You've ruined my morning. I just want to say, because when we finish here, I'm going to be digging into these stupid cars.
yeah. Well, all I can tell you is that it was a weird story, and again, maybe I should have rehearsed that story before we went live and said, "Hey, have you heard about this?"
You
And
might want
and
to give me a heads up on that one, because then I could have quickly gone.
it just, yeah, give us your hot take on it. All right, so we'll pivot though, Scott, and give you a break on that one.
Okay.
And it's, again, I try to cover different things, and I guess I try to be a little bit unpredictable from time to time. So explosions. I think it was yesterday or the day before, hit air bases deep inside Russia, and we're talking like 250 miles inside of Russia, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And I believe there were a couple of casualties. The Russian Defense Ministry said the attacks were carried out by Ukraine using a number of drones, and I guess an anonymous senior Ukrainian official speaking to the New York Times did take credit for the attack. And so, what does this mean as far as the war, Scott? Is this an escalation here? Because this is pretty deep inside of Russia, and if you've got casualties, and I know Russian soldiers are obviously dying in this conflict, but now they're kind of targeting folks deeper inside of Russia. Is that show that this war is not going to wind down anytime soon, even though we're into the winter season, and Russia has a real strategic advantage, as you've said on this show a few times?
Doesn't mean anything of the sort. I mean, the Ukrainians, God bless their innovative souls, took these Tupolev 141, I think is the number. They're drones used for targeting or practicing surface to air engagement. So you fire these drones, and then an anti-aircraft battery is supposed to pick them up and shoot them down. What the Ukrainians did is turn them into kamikaze drones. I would imagine that this requires them to have a some sort of warhead on it, explosive warhead of some size, and then there would have to be some sort of terminal guidance capability because normally an air-to-air drone is going to go point to point to point, but it's not designed to actually land. It's going to die. Here, they wanted to hit a target, so they modified it to do this one-way mission. It has the range, and they fired, a couple of them. From what I understand, they were engaged by Russian air defense. And what destroyed or damaged aircraft was the spent body of the drone. When you shoot something down, yay, you hit it, but it has to land somewhere. And if you engage it close, my understanding is engaged by the Pantsir surface air missile system, air defense system. And I don't know, there's, they use a variety of missiles and guns to engage. So they shot it down and in one of the air bases. It impacted in the vicinity of an aircraft, hit a fuel tanker, killed 3 guys, damaged some aircraft. And the other place, I think they might have wounded a few people, maybe damaged some more aircraft. And all 3 aircraft were damaged.
Yeah.
I don't know the extent of the damage. Some people have looked at the imagery and said they can be repaired. I'll tell you this: the plane I saw ain't going to be repaired for some time now. That's it. First. I mean, again, people say, "Oh, it can be repaired." Yeah, it can be repaired. You got to take it in. You literally have to strip off the airframe, test everything, stress test everything, put the airframe back on. It's good. It can be done, but it's not going to be quick and it's not going to be cheap. But here's the point: Russia has hundreds of heavy bombers. They lost 3.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't a game changer,
right?
At all. We flew B-52 bombers over Vietnam. We got a whole bunch shot down. Didn't mean we lost the war. Didn't mean we lost our capability. It means it's war. The Ukrainians are innovative. The New York Times also reported that a deep reconnaissance group of the Ukrainian Special Forces was in the vicinity of the airfield doing the final guidance into the target, which means that they were perhaps laser designating. Because there's only one reason to have eyes that close, which means you're doing final terminal control. Because if the aircraft has a GPS or some sort of satellite guidance, you don't need people near the airfield. You wouldn't risk your resources. So if somebody got that close, it implies to me they were doing some sort of laser designation to have this thing come in and hit a target. That's what the Russians should worry about more than anything. The fact that the Ukrainians modified some, air defense drones and fired them off. Hey, innovative. It's war. Stuff happens. Yay, the enemy got one in. Learn. But if the Ukrainians have a deep reconnaissance group close enough to a strategic airfield where they can laser designate, some of these bombers are nuclear capable, and they are the strategic, the bomber leg of the Russian triad, strategic nuclear triad. And if you have enemy forces close enough where they can laser designate, and terminally guide in conventional weapons to take out bombers, that's the problem. But again, it doesn't mean that Russia's losing the war. It just means that Russia has a lot to learn still. The Ukrainians these aren't knockout blows. This is prestige. That's it. What happened later today? Russia took off its bombers and knocked the crap out of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Advantage Russia. It didn't change anything, didn't alter any outcome. It was a propaganda victory, like almost every victory the Ukrainians land. Nice little propaganda victory, but at the end of the day, Russia is the one that has the ability to deliver knockout blows, not Ukraine.
Right. And, the same report that I read mentioned that Russia took out a lot more of the infrastructure, the power grid, and there were partial blackouts that were reported in Odessa and Kharkiv and a few other places within, Ukraine. I mean, in a way, Scott, I mean, they're essentially antagonizing Russia more and more, where initially, you and I talked a long time ago about what the goals are and for Russia, and that was to denazify and demilitarize and hopefully stop all of the shelling that was going on in the Donbass region. You don't hear too much about that anymore because everybody's talking about the back and forth strategy. But is Russia still on track to do what they set out to do initially?
They appear to be. I mean, they are in the process of bringing in close to 220,000 fresh troops. If the stories are correct, they just deployed 200 of their most modern T-90M main battle tanks. They're deploying large numbers of their 2S-35 self-propelled artillery system. So they're bringing in fresh troops and their most modern equipment. I wouldn't imagine that that's being done to sit on the bench.
Right.
They're bringing the A team in, and when they're ready on a timetable that will be determined by the Russians, they will do what they are going to do. And I don't imagine the Russians will either overreach or B, underreach. I think they're going to pick that middle ground, which is a task appropriate to the resources available, not only in terms of accomplishing the task, but holding on to the territory. One of the mistakes they made early on was to seize far too much territory for the resources available, ending up with a situation where you could man a kilometer of line with 30 to 60 troops. No, that's never going to happen again. The Russians are building extensive defenses. People say, well, defenses mean they're going to be on the defensive. Nope. Defenses are the anchor that allows you to launch a massive counterattack with the maximum number of troops available. So I am anticipating that there will be a major Russian offensive, and it will be decisive, and it will be deadly for the Ukrainians.
Okay, well, that's why we have you on, because we want that sort of straightforward perspective that you provide. Another issue, Scott, yesterday, Russian oil, more sanctions, a price cap, and also an embargo from the EU. And this to me is mind blowing when you read the story, because you think to yourself, it's getting really cold, right? I mean, you're seeing temperatures that are, what is supposed to happen at this time of year. We're in the month of December, and it just seems to me that the West and the EU, whatever, are really just destroying the economy of this region. And when I say this region, I'm talking about a good portion of Europe and obviously the United States. You hear still in the news that, Russia is the reason that we have inflation, or Russia is the reason that, energy prices went up and they're not really coming down. They're fluctuating, and it's up to, Russia to basically bow out and surrender to Ukraine. So, we don't have these crazy policies like, people really need this oil right now, Scott. And I was wondering what your views are. Is this just doubling down on stupid, or do they actually think this is going to do something? Because Russia hasn't responded yet, but they're saying that they're not going to accept any price caps. They're basically full steam ahead. And there are a number of countries that want that Russian oil that aren't playing along with the narrative. And to me, it's about self-preservation. Regardless of their green energy policies or what they wanted to do, like countries like Germany, for instance, it seems as though the population is really going to suffer, where the elites in these governments, they can continue to play their 5D chess or whatever they think it is, but populations all over the world are going to be suffering because of these ridiculous policies that the EU and the United States embrace.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at it this way. The EU and the United States have not shown any proclivity toward meaningful energy security analysis. They've gotten it all wrong. The entire premise of their sanctions, their initial sanctions against Russia targeting energy, et cetera, backfired. And this is going to backfire too. Russia will not sell oil to any nation that participates in the cap. But here's the most important part, and this is where the arrogance of the EU comes into play and blinds them to reality. No other oil producing country in the world is going to accept caps on anybody. Because once you say, oh, it's okay to artificially suppress a oil producing country's ability to generate income by putting a price cap on it, you can do it to us. And the Saudis are going, not just no, but hell no.
Yeah.
So OPEC is now saying, okay, you want to play this game? We're going to consider even additional cuts, which will just jack the price of oil all the way up. And the Russians are saying, we'll just start taking oil off the market, jacking the price of oil all the way up. So, Europe is, the whole purpose of this was to avoid windfall profits for Russia. That we can't allow Russia to profit from selling its goods on the market. So we're going to put a cap on it. It's just not going to work. Russia will sell its oil at steep discounts to nations like India, China, and others, but they'll still make a profit, killer profit, by the way. And then India will resell its oil to Europe, its oil being Russian oil. So Europe, this is the stupidity of Europe, because they're going to buy the oil. They know they're going to buy the oil because they have no choice. There is no other oil for them to buy. So they're going to say, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. We're going to put a price cap on it, and we're going to de-insure any ship carrying Russian oil, which means that, for instance, any Russian tankers coming out of the Black Sea can't go through the Bosphorus unless they have insurance. Well, Russia has mobilized a fleet, I forget how many, 130 tankers. They're coming up with their own insurance mechanism to do this. Russia will get by. So Russia's going to sell oil. Europe, you can't stop that. That's how stupid you guys are. You're really stupid. You're ignorant. You're dumb. You're arrogant. You're foolish. I can keep going all day long and never run out of words to define how stupid you are. And you're going to end up paying through the nose for this oil anyways, because you are hypocrites. Yeah. We don't want Russian oil. You're going to be buying Russian oil, but you're going to be paying the price that India is going to charge you, and it's going to be based upon the market value of the oil. So India is buying it at a discount from the Russians, and then India is going to turn around and jack that price up, and you're going to hit with double shipping costs, and your citizens are going to go, why the hell is gasoline so expensive? Blame your stupid politicians. Mm-hmm. In America, the price of oil is going to go up too, and that's going to impact you, us, everybody. You know who it's not going to impact? Russia. Yeah. They don't care. Here's the thing. Let's say Europe wants to put a cap on $60 a barrel.
Yep.
I don't know, but if oil goes up to $120 a barrel, who knows? It might, because OPEC's getting ready to cut oil supplies. But let's say it goes up to 100, whatever it is. Russia doesn't have to sell as much oil to make the money. You just made it easy for Russia. Price goes up, Russia can reduce the volume produced, seeing the price up even more, and what they make off of that compensates. You guys don't think. You're really the dumbest people on the planet. I mean, they really are. It used to be, a European could stand up with their cute little European accent and their funny little European name and speak before a microphone, and people listen because they went, oh, they're Europeans. They're cultured. They obviously are well educated, so they must know something. They don't know anything. These little cute little European names and their funny little accents are the dumbest people on the planet. Just look what they're doing to their own country. They cut Russian gas, which is driving all the major industries in Europe out of business. They're shutting down. 1 in 4 German industrial jobs are going to possibly flee to the United States over the course of the next several months. And you do this with oil, you're going to shut everything down too. You're going to bankrupt your entire society. I don't have any words for this, because these are just stupid people. I don't know how many stupids I'm allowed to say before I make my point.
No, perfect amount of stupids. I mean, you could have you could have kept going probably, but that was good. It's really similar, Scott, to what we're doing to our own domestic energy situation here when we have our own supply, and now we're signing up to buy like oil from Venezuela, and I'm just I'm just blown away by the stupidity of that. When again, we were, whether you like Donald Trump or not, I think his energy policy was basically, we're going to be like the Saudi Arabia of this part of the world, and we're not going to rely on other countries, which I think is good for national security. A lot of people don't think these things through, that, hey, I'm going to need to buy oil from countries that really don't like us, or that do certain things to their own people. And then there are human rights issues and blah, blah, blah. And so, it's bizarre. We're kind of living in an upside down world in so many different ways. But I guess the moral of this is, hey, India becomes the middleman for oil that's supposed to be sold directly from Russia. But since, hey, we've got a Russia bad, and, they invaded Ukraine, and they did so without any cause or reason, which is still kind of the media narrative here in the United States. People start to believe this stuff, but they don't connect the dots. They can't see how ridiculous and, as you say, stupid, squared or cubed or whatever these policies are. And these are going to hurt average people. Like I've said before, this isn't about, just one dictator over here going after a president over here. And, we're going to play this game of geopolitics monopoly, and whoever, gets the most guys across go wins the war, wins, the PR battle. I mean, I just feel for all these citizens in Ukraine, Scott. I mean, their power's going off, and Germany. Germany. I don't know if you've seen some of the news coming out of Germany, but don't take a hot shower. Don't put your thermostat on at this time of day. Don't even put it on. Never mind. Like, remember, I'm sure you remember Jimmy Carter when he donned the sweater. Yeah. And he told everybody, I forget what the temperature was, he said to bring it down to, and Americans were pissed off at that. We're like, nobody tells us what to, if I want the room 80 degrees, it's going to be 80.
Yeah. Look, here's a couple points. One, I'll start off with the most controversial one first. I've stopped feeling sorry for the people of Ukraine. You reap the whirlwind, You reap the wind, you sow the whirlwind, baby. I've been reading up. There's a book written by Catherine Clay called "The Good Germans," and she tried to excuse away the German population during, in the rise of Adolf Hitler, by pointing out that 2/3 of them didn't vote for Adolf Hitler in 1933, and that they were passive and they were intimidated. And I'm going, what a crock of what? Those goddamn Germans. Oh, can I say that? I'm sorry. Those darn Germans.
There you go. Gosh darn
Germans.
Yep.
Were pathologically passive. Yeah. They loved the trains running on time. They knew exactly what the term that another person uses, Daniel Goldhagen, I believe, wrote another book called Hitler's Willing Execution. And he was getting into the mindset, because another person had written a book about a police battalion, saying that it wasn't just the Waffen SS that killed Jews and murdered Poles, that normal police people did, and they did it anyways. They obeyed the orders, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why is that he called it, it was, there's a specific term, but pre-programmed anti-Semitism, meaning that the German public were pre-programmed to understand that the Jews were bad and the Jews needed to be killed, and the Germans were superior, and the Poles were bad, and so when it was happening, they just went, yep, that's the natural order of things. And I buy into this 100%, that the German people do not get a free pass on Adolf Hitler. The German people must carry that weight and that burden for their entire lives until they prove to us that they haven't been, that programming has been removed. And it hasn't been, because the German people are supporting the Nazis in Ukraine as we speak. The Ukrainian people say, Scott, what do you want the Ukrainian people to do? I said, well, we know what we want them to do. It's what a lot of Ukrainian people did stand up and say, hell no. What do you think was going on in the Donbass?
Right.
This wasn't Russian separatism. What this was the Ukrainian people of that area saying no to Nazis and taking up arms and physically fighting them. They are the only good Ukrainians. The people of Eastern Ukraine who decided to stand up, put their lives on the line to resist the Nazi scourge coming out of Kiev are the only good Ukrainians. Everybody else is a bad Ukrainian. You get what you deserve. You saran wrap people around a pole, you paint their face green, you slap their naked butts, you call them orcs, slaughter prisoners of war, you hunt down people and murder them. I don't have any sympathy for you. I hope you all freeze to death. I hope everything bad happens to you until you finally realize that the only way out of this is to slaughter the Nazis. Join the good Ukrainians. But you know what? There's no more good Ukrainians. They're Russians now.
Yeah.
They've been absorbed into Mother Russia. And maybe that's what has to happen. Ukraine has to disappear because it's a broken, fundamentally broken, sick nation where you have a bunch of people who have embraced the ideology of Stepan Bandera. And again, it's, early on, I could understand when people say, Scott, you're overreacting, man. It's not widespread like that. And I second guess myself. I go, well, gosh, I don't know, man. You absorb Nazi battalions without changing their Nazi roots into the army. That's not good. But okay, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces just took a selfie with Stepan Bandera's photograph in the back.
Yeah.
Okay, they all deserve to die. That's it. I have no sympathy for them. If you don't want to die, start killing Nazis. Otherwise, you're a Nazi. You're either active or you're pathologically passive, but you're not innocent. There is no such thing as an innocent Ukrainian today. If you're a Ukrainian citizen and you are following the dictates of your Nazi-dominated government, you're a Nazi. You're going to pay the price, and I'm tired of worrying about you. I don't care about you anymore. I only care about the good Ukrainians, the ones who are against the Nazis. But they've all been converted into Russians right now. So we're making this very easy. Okay, now we move on. That one's going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I don't care anymore. I'm fed up to here with Ukrainians. If you're watching this program, you have a damn Ukrainian flag next to your name on social media, you're a Nazi supporter. Now call anybody right now who puts a Ukrainian flag up a Nazi to their face, because that's what you are. You're a Nazi. You're supporting a National Socialist ideal, a notion of racial supremacy. And here's the irony. You want to know the ultimate irony of this all?
Yes.
Ukrainians in Lvov just set up this little lab where you can go in and get tested for racial purity.
Oh, no.
This is sickness.
Wow.
This is literally Adolf Hitler level sickness. But you can go in and get tested for racial purity to find out if you have any Russian in you. Because, of course, Russian is a subhuman species. And, God, it's like having some Jewish blood if you're German. Oh, God, you can't have that.
Yeah.
But here's the irony. They're doing this because they worship this guy, Stepan Bandera, who is a Greek. His father was a Greek. His mother was a Greek. He was born in Poland. He was never Ukrainian. You little scum. That's like the Aryan Germans worshiping Adolf Hitler, who may have had some Jewish blood in him. I mean, the stupidity of these people, claiming to be racially supreme when the man they're following isn't even Ukrainian, he's a Greek. Yeah. I'm not saying Greeks are bad. Not at all. Please, any Greeks who took offense, don't. I'm saying that you can't be a racially pure Ukrainian if your father and your mother were Greek. You can't be. It doesn't work that way. That's it. What was the other thing we're going to talk about? We talked.
You said that was the more controversial part.
That was the more one, that came in too. The first part, though, you let off with something we were going to talk about.
Yeah,
the poor Ukrainian people.
Well, the Germans and just Europeans in general, they're just, I feel bad for. This is what what I meant to kind of say is there are a lot of people, Scott, in this country that have been, and you touched on it, but I'm going to kind of sort of piggyback off of what you said, is that there's been a pretty high level of brainwashing, right? Each and every day. That's why they got the little, on the lapel, they got the Ukrainian flag and in their social media profiles. And right off the bat, it was, here's the next thing. that NPCs and non-playable characters all out there. And, we were supporting something prior to that. I forget what it was. I think probably something during the pandemic. You were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and you did X, Y, and Z. So the next thing you're supposed to do now is, yes, we have to, fight the Russians in Ukraine, and we support the poor people of Ukraine. So the perception, right? And maybe I probably said, hey, there are some people in Ukraine who are much like the American population, who just kind of go along. And you're right, it's on them. It's not on anyone else. I mean, if they don't like all of the artillery fire and all the shells coming down and explosions and rockets and thugs running the country, then they did have, I think, a little time for safe passage. But I mean, these people are they're brutal. They are some of the most brutal people. They'll shoot at their own people. You're leaving? You can't leave. You going? Where are you going? You trying to get to Russia? You trying to get to the eastern part? No, we're not going to let you do that. I mean, this is why a power plant, a nuclear power plant over there continues to get shelled or bombed every so often, because they're trying to send some stupid message like, no, you can't have that plant. We're not going to. I mean, these people are fighting to all for propaganda, all for just like, okay, this will, like Zelensky's going to say, oh, this will make the news in the West, and then I can go and do my little satellite transmission, and they'll beam me into Congress, and not literally like Star Trek, but like the Zoom, like we're doing. And then Zelensky will sit there and beg for more money. Oh, did you see what we did? You see how we shot that rocket 250 miles into? Yeah, we're doing great. So now, and you got Republicans and Democrats, by the way. Too many. I don't understand the Republican Party. I get what's going on with the Biden party, whatever that is. But you got these Republicans. Yeah, I'm on board with this. All on propaganda, Scott. All based on media narrative. I mean, if you're a member of Congress, shouldn't you be briefed on every detail, like every reality on the ground, every possible thing that you need to know in order for you, kind of like informed consent, right, to make a good decision when you go and vote, or you address your constituents and say, this is why we need to send another $55 billion to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Joe Sixpack can't afford his groceries anymore because he goes to Walmart and he's like, holy crap, what happened to Walmart? I used to get stuff cheap here. Now it's like, it's ridiculous. Something that was, $1 or $2 is now $4. And I see this all the time because I do a lot of the shopping in my home. So I know what's going on. So anyway, I know I gave you a lot there, but I think I feel bad for the duped and for this narrative that just, if you turn on the news media, this is what you're going to get. I mean, you got to work a little bit to go around this and find real information.
No, I understand that. I mean, I think I may have told you this before, back when I was doing the Iraq thing, I'd go and Monday Night Football, go out with my friends, and we'd watch football. And you start off by having the wings before the game, and you're talking, and they're all like, "Man, you're out there. They don't like you, Scott. They're attacking you for your position on Iraq. What's going on, man? Are you right? Are you wrong?" And we talk, and they'd finally they'd say, "Well, I guess this because you lived it, you did it, but we don't have time to dig into it like you do, so we're prisoners to the media and all this stuff." And I'd say, okay, I get it. You work long hours, you come home, and you don't have time to spend another 8-hour day digging through alternative news sources. You watch the news, and okay, I get it. All is forgiven. Then the game comes on, and of course we're watching the game, and it's 3rd down and 2, and the quarterback hands off the ball to number 32, who does tries to run between the tackle and the guard, and he gets stopped short. They're like, "Why would you run that play? That's a low percentage play. On this day, this guy, you should have done the end around. That's a higher percentage play. What's going on?" And I'm like, "How do you guys know the percentages here?" Man, I mean, we read the sports things, we know the injury reports and all that. I said, so you do have enough time to learn intimate details about a football game, but you don't have enough time to learn intimate details about the foreign policy of the United States. No one's going to die tonight in that football game. No one.
No.
Thousands of Americans are going to die in a war. And you're telling me that the football game's more important to you in terms of time management than the war. And that's where I stand with most Americans. They're still my friends. I mean, I'm not going to allow this kind of crap to get in the way of friendship. I'm just pointing out that everybody makes their own choices, and you have to make your own priorities. But what I don't want to hear from you is that you give a damn when you don't. I don't want people telling me how much they care about an issue when you don't care enough to learn about the issue, because then all you become is a Ukraine social media flag flying idiot. All right. You jump onto a cause, you have no clue what the cause is. And here's the thing about Congress. Congress doesn't know a damn thing. There was an interesting show. I can't remember. It might have been a Michael Moore movie. I don't know. But a guy gets elected to Congress, and he gets sworn in. The very first thing he does is he gets taken down to this phone bank where on day one in office, he has to start making calls to raise money for the next election.
Yeah.
That's all he does. And there's other people in there making the same phone calls. And so who reads the bill? Not the congressman. They have staffers who don't even read the bills. But this is where the whips come in. This is where the people who count the votes and all that, their job is to basically line you up. You're not elected to ask questions. You're not elected to do anything except show up and vote the way your party tells you to vote. That's the way the party system works. They don't want anybody asking questions. If you get elevated to a chairmanship or a subcommittee chairmanship or something like that, they beef up your staff. You get to tap into the subcommittee staff, and they'll do research for you so you can ask questions. But if you honestly think that you're going to stay on that committee, if you start asking questions that you research and you write that deviate from what the mainstream line of questioning from your party wants, you're smoking some serious dope. Congress is not about individuals. There are no heroes in Congress. They are all a bunch of toady lackeys who get elected. They have to immediately go into fundraising. And you know what? If they start playing the independent game, you know what doesn't happen? That phone list they get of people to call comes from their party.
Yeah.
The party says, call these people, raise this money, we'll match it, and you'll get reelected. We'll prevent you from being primaried. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. But the last thing we want you to do is think. Don't read the bill. Because if you read the bill, you might start asking questions that we don't want to answer. All we want from you is a yes vote on the bill. I just gave you the God's honest truth about the reality of Congress. Anybody wants to disagree with me, bring it on. I'll challenge any congressperson right now. I'll pull up the last 5 bills you voted on, and you won't know a damn thing about them. Nothing. I'll read you footnotes, and you go, what the hell was that? I say, you voted on it. Did it? Because they don't read. They make phone calls. They go to fundraisers. They look pretty. And they have staffers. All the staffers' job is to make sure the congressperson stop talking points. They don't know about the bills that they vote on. They don't read the bills they vote on. This isn't democracy, ladies and gentlemen. It's not democracy. Democracy means I hold the people I elect office accountable for what they do in my name. The system doesn't work that way. I don't even get to put them on the ballot. I show up on election day, and the Democratic and Republican Party have picked the people I'm voting for. So all I'm doing is certifying one idiot or another idiot who goes in and the system takes over. And that's it. Bills mean nothing. Bills aren't about helping us. You read the bills, they're about helping the special interests, the way they carve out money for this, that, and the other thing. You read a bill and you realize you're authorizing money to be spent on something that doesn't even match what the title of the bill is.
Mm-hmm.
No. And all the congressperson is supposed to do is vote yes. Vote yes.
Yeah.
Vote yes. Now, there's a rare few. There's some constituencies out there. Marjorie Taylor Greene may be one of the few because she's going to get voted no matter what because they love her.
Yeah.
For right or wrong, they love her. So she doesn't need the money and all that stuff. She just puts her name on the ballot. They're going to vote for her. She's got a safe district. But that is rare. There's very few safe districts. And just to ask anybody who thought that they were going to be reelected to Congress and didn't get reelected. And just take a look at the people who lost. Ask them, how much support did they get from the Democratic Party on this election? When the Democratic Party says, we're going to give you money, you very rarely lose that election unless the Republicans match it with a lot of money. Then you get into a spending thing. But if the Democratic Party says, "Mount, we like you, here's the money for your campaign," you tend to win. But sometimes the Democratic Party goes, "Nah, you weren't quite the person we thought you were." Pull the money back, and they'll take the 2-year loss, even if it goes over to the Republicans, because they're sending a signal: play ball, or you don't get to play the game.
Yeah. Well, you summed it up, man. It's an unfortunate level of corruption that's just embedded into it. And I don't know what the solution is to it. I really don't. I talk about it from time to time, and I'm getting more and more kind of black pilled because people will say, "Oh, this guy is better than." I'm like, okay, and I think you were on a podcast or you did something where you're talking about the swamp creatures, right? And you had this great expression. You called it the blob, which Scott, that was just, I love that. I don't know. It just sounded great and it described it perfectly. It's just this blob that comes along, and you talked about Trump. He got elected. He's an outsider, and as soon as people converged on him and said, "Hey, yeah, we'll okay, you're elected, fine, but you've already got Pence as your vice president. You got guys like Pompeo and John Bolton and Jared Kushner that are all just going to do our foreign policy the way we typically do it. You can have your priority on paper. You can tell everybody, yeah, we're going to, Trump was running around saying that we're going to kick ISIS out of, do this and do that, and we're going to be tough, and we're going to build the military up, and then we're going to go after the people I think we should go after. Obama had his people that he wanted to go after, and obviously we all know about George W. Bush and all of that. So you change the furniture, you change the deck chairs on the sinking ship, and people continue to get the same crap, Scott. It doesn't change, and it doesn't seem. It seems that maybe you should just go watch football with your buddies, right, and not worry about it after a while. I mean,
that might be the solution.
You live your life. You maybe work locally to try to fix some things. Maybe you're, like I'm in an HOA. I got to worry about the stinking HOA, and then you got your county commissioner, and then maybe you can work with your county sheriff. Maybe there's some things that you can do. Like old school 10th Amendment. The power goes back to the states, back to the people, the individuals, and their own destiny. Because this whole politics. I had this phrase that I've been saying, and I think it was Frank Zappa, the guitarist, the late guitar player, who said that politics is the entertainment wing of the military-industrial complex, and that to me sums it all up.
Yeah, let's just take two examples. That Barack Obama came in saying he wanted to close Guantanamo Bay.
Yep.
Hey, Barack, you're the commander-in-chief. It's a military installation. This is as easy as it gets, Barack. Ready? Let me show you how it works. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Yeah. Why don't you bring all your boys down here? Bring the guy that runs Guantanamo. Bring him into my office right now. Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks for coming to my meeting today. We're going to shut Guantanamo Bay down. I want it closed in 2 months. You've got a week to give me options, all that. If you can't handle it, submit your letter of resignation right now. If you fail to comply with the order, I'll fire you and I'll find somebody who can do the job. Have a good day. I don't want any questions out of my office.
Yeah.
End of story. Donald Trump. I want troops out of Syria. Now, here's the funny thing. They not only didn't they not take the troops out of Syria, they put more troops in Syria. Yep. So what I don't understand, when he found that out, why didn't he, hey, General Miley, why don't you come down? Hey, wear civilian clothes, by the way, because you're not a general anymore. And bring the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff. Fact is, bring the entire chain of command all the way up to the decision that was made to disobey my order about withdrawing troops from Syria. You're all fired. Bring you in here. I'm going to arrest some of you, send you to jail. Have a good day. Commander-in-Chief, make it happen. You disobeyed a direct order. That's a crime. I'm arresting you. I'm prosecuting. I'm putting you in jail. God, that sounds like a dictator. No, that sounds like a commander-in-chief.
Correct.
Issue the orders to the military. The military must obey the orders because they're lawful orders. There's nothing unconstitutional about shutting down an unlawful prison. There's nothing unconstitutional about ordering people out of a nation that we're unlawfully present in. that it's the most constitutional thing there is. But both Obama and Trump were unable to do this because they are prisoners of the blob. Blob owns them. It's consumed them. It's ridiculous. I love this country and I love what the potential of this country, but Thomas Jefferson, I'm not going to repeat his words because people oftentimes think that you're talking about violence when you do it. But Jefferson understood that democracy needs to be refreshed. And maybe it's time for some refreshing. I don't know, because the system's broke, fundamentally broke. And again, as much as I condemn, I also get in trouble for this one. I love it. I always get in trouble every time I speak. Who do I blame? I blame the people of America. Mm-hmm. You can't blame me. I didn't do that. I didn't support that. Then what are you doing about it? Sitting on your ass at home? Are you out in the streets? Well, I have a job. So you're pathologically passive. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about. If you're sitting at home and you know it's wrong, but you're letting it happen, it's your fault. It's your fault. America's strength is the people who are, have these ideals that are set forth in the Constitution. Yeah. Fall in love with the Constitution, breathe the Constitution, live the Constitution, fight for the Constitution. Right now, you're fighting for this consumer-based, nonsense. We're so worried about whether or not the PS5 is going to be on the shelf in time at the price I need for Christmas. We're worried about that, but we're not worried about tens of billions of dollars going to Ukraine. Nope. This is a nation that's broke, and the thing that's fun. What I just described about the congressman making the phone calls. If I were that congressman's constituent, I would go up to him right there and I'd say, hang up the phone. If you make another phone call, I fire you. You work for me, you son of a gun. You work for me. Stop raising money. Start reading bills.
Right.
Start voting properly. I vote for you. No one you're picking up the phone to call to votes for you. Work for me. Work for all of us. Stop this fundraising. Get to work. And if you can't do it, the hell out of office. But we don't do that. We just assume it's going to happen and it's broken and we know it's broken. We're just going to let it happen. So why don't we just surrender? Stop calling ourselves a democracy and call ourselves a nation of consumers who like to watch football, because that's the honest truth.
Yeah.
Give me the PS5 and let me watch a good football game on Saturday, on Sunday, and I'm a happy camper. Every once in a while, I can scrounge to get enough money to buy a nice steak or whatever. Feed me, entertain me, let me play games. That's American citizen. All of you watching this far guilty of this. I'm guilty of it to some extent. I mean, I try my best, but at the end of the day, there's only so much I can do. Right. I'm not willing to burn down the house, pick up the gun and charge the enemy. That's stupid. That's suicidal. So people like you and me, we're literally voices screaming in the wind.
Yeah.
We're trying our best at the end, but at the end of the day, no revolution is going to happen because of anything we're saying here. No. It's going to require the people collectively, unfortunately, to be downtrodden so much. I mean, what brought down the empire of the czars? Workers, oppressed workers in the streets. But even that wasn't enough. You needed the Cossacks to charge them and kill them, get enough people angry enough to overthrow the regime. Now, I'm not advocating violent overthrow of the U.S. government. I'm advocating constitutional due process, but the constitutional due process doesn't work unless the American people are engaged. We have forfeited our constitutional responsibilities. We've turned it over to a system that doesn't care about us, a system that allows our elected representatives to vote on a bill they didn't read.
Yeah.
If you did that at work, you'd be fired. If my boss came up and said, okay, what'd you do? I signed the contract. Did you read the contract? No, I just signed the contract. You're fired.
Right.
You're fired. You're incompetent. You didn't read the job. And yet we're electing people. They don't read the bills, but they vote on them. That's grounds for immediate dismissal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you remember Pelosi, her famous quote from a number of years ago that we're going to have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. I mean, at that point, the media should have been like, hey, but see, the media is so complicit with all this. Is so like, we're just going to, prop up the establishment, and that is mostly Democrats, but a number of Republicans, the Mitch McConnells of the world, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, that want to go along to get along, just to move the ball down the field. But where are we moving that ball? We're moving it toward tyranny. We're moving it toward, in some cases, a military, a police state kind of thing, or just our rights are just going away, and everybody's like, well, they've got our best interests at heart, right? If anybody, like you said, if anybody's sitting around thinking that these are public servants, that these people, maybe initially they got involved with this and they said, I want to make a difference and I'm going to go to Washington. And like you said, they get there and it's like they get debriefed, it's like, no. You think you're going to be independent. You think you're going to do your own thing here. Well, if you want to play the game with us and you want to be invited to all the parties and you want to, get a book deal someday. I mean, these people, Scott, come out wealthy as AF, I'll use that expression because it's popular today. And it's amazing. Like, you're supposed to be, in the old days, like, it was the farmer or the electrician. I'm going to DC and I'm gonna represent the people of my area, my district, and we're gonna get real representation for what the people where I live, what they believe in. Now, that can differ. I'm okay if you're in an area that's very blue or very red, and you want to, send people to DC to do those things for you. That's what government is supposed to be. But now it's just like you say, you're sending people to join the blob. Whether it's the deeper state blob, which again you described beautifully in that video I watched. I kind of call it like the executive. Like, I don't know if it's one person or it's people in multiple agencies. I always think, well, Joe Biden is the executive, right? No, he's not. He is an executive, but there's let's just be honest. There's everybody above him, whoever those people are. They're calling the shots. And we know it. We know it because he's barely coherent. He's an 80-year-old dawdling fool. You put a guy in the Senate in Pennsylvania who had a stroke and didn't campaign. You had another candidate for governor in Arizona, didn't campaign, hid most of the time, and they're all like very confident, like, I'm not really worried. I'm supposed to debate this person, but I mean, something is terribly wrong, and I think you covered it really well. I don't know if you have any other thoughts to add to that.
The blob is there's no term limit.
Yeah.
President has an 8-year term limit. So even if you have a reactionary, I mean 8-year potential, 4 years at a shot. And look what happened to Donald Trump.
Right.
The blob ate him up, spit him out.
Yep.
The blob cannot wait 4 years. Blob's bigger than 4 years. Blob's timeless. Blob is permanent. Blob just sits there and says, you want to come in? And we're just going to absorb all the stuff you're doing. 4 years later, spit you out, and we'll bring in somebody who wants to work with the blob, Joe Biden. But as you said, Biden's not in charge of anything. Biden is dictated to by the blob.
Yeah.
The permanent deep state, whatever you want to call it, sets all the priorities for Biden. He can't even, on the nuclear stuff. I'm going to run on sole purpose, the sole purpose doctrine, the sole purpose of America's nuclear arsenal is deterrence. Deterrence. We will never preemptively strike. He comes in, and he just continues the same nuclear policy because can't change it, man, because the system has decided that's what's going to be. All the money that's attached to our nuclear establishment is all out there in the blob. It's like, this giant cancerous mass with the blood vessels penetrating everything. Oh, God.
Maybe, hey, Scott, I think the follow-up to this book, you should write a book called The Blob after this.
Blob. Well, I may, but then the blob will eat me. I'll be writing it. The little blob white cells will come out.
Very visual. There could be a major motion picture, Scott. You could get a movie deal. This could be even independent media. I'd be promoting The Blob. I'd be saying, you got to go. Scott Ritter's The Blob. You got to go see it, man. It's about our government.
You ready?
What?
I write the book. Yeah. I get the phone call from Hollywood. This is Lionsgate. I don't know. We want to produce your movie. Oh, but I demand integrity. You got it, Scott. No problem. By the way, take that wife on a vacation.
Oh,
yeah, I would. Well, here's an advance. and here's the contract signed, the advance. Next thing I know, they got a writer coming in saying, I'm going to help you write the screenplay. Boom, boom, boom. And The Blob turned into Tom Hanks' Castaway. Going, wait a minute. I wrote a book called The Blob. Yeah, I know, but this is based on The Blob. Well, no, it's not. It's something totally different. That's what happened. Because if I were to write The Blob and make the movie about The Blob, it would be done by an indie producer with a low budget, wouldn't get, none of the theaters would ever play it. To write the best-selling whatever. But I was, war story, if you don't. My first book was not a book I wanted to write. It was Endgame. I got a call from Simon & Schuster. And they said, we want you to write a book. I said, okay. And, this is after I resigned. So I was like literally unemployed with a mountain of bills this big and no job, no income, no nothing.
Yeah.
We'll write you a book. Okay, we're going to pay you in advance. Okay, now I'm happy. And so I sit down with them and I say, I'd like to write the definitive history of the weapons inspection process. No, Scott, we're looking at a policy book. Policy book. We need to write a policy book. You can do the definitive history later. Policy book. All right. Then we sit down. They go, well, you got to have a. We're going to get you a ghostwriter. I said, nope. No. My name, my book, I write. They're like, oh. So I said, I wrote up a sample chapter and I submitted it. Alice Mayhew, if you know anything about Simon & Schuster, she's the kingmaker. Yeah. She's Bob Woodward's editor. She's the big editor of editors. Alice Mayhew reads it. This is proof we have to give you a ghostwriter because you can't write worth poop. Boom, boom, boom. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I won't accept someone writing the book. I'm going to write the book. You can give me an editor. Mm-hmm. And so I'll hand it off and then they'll massage it to make it readable for you. But they were going back and forth and they thought they owned me. So they wrote out this check for $250,000. I slid across the table. They said, right there, sign the contract with the ghostwriter. And I looked at Mayhew and I went, who do you think you're dealing with here? I took the check and I took the contract. And I ripped it up, threw it right back in her face. Said, I can't be bought. And I walked out going, God, my wife's going to kill me because we really needed that money. Well, they called me back in and Mayhew was just, sitting there all pinch-faced. And Rosenblum, or her boss, the guy who runs it, said, okay, we're going to give you $250,000, but you're going to have to, you're making this decision. We're going to give you a writer, but he's going to cost you $50,000. So right off the bat, 50, that 250 goes to this guy who's going to. So I do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm writing the chapters and I'm sending to him and we're going back and forth. He's making it smoother. And all of a sudden they call up, Scott, we have an accelerated timeline. I said, well, then I'm finishing the book. Finish the book, boom, submit it, they publish it. It's an okay book. It was a policy book, a quick policy book. I'm not unhappy with, but it wasn't the book I wanted to write. Right. But the sample chapter that she rejected, I put in there unchanged. And people who read the book say, that's the best chapter in the book. Yeah. Okay. But the whole purpose of the story is that the publishers try to control you from day one. And the other thing that happened is because this was a policy book, and I knew this was going to happen. Iraq stopped being the big thing after Desert Fox. And then Serbia became the big thing. I was literally supposed to go on Larry King Live, which was a big deal. Sell my book. That would have sold lots of copies. Right. And they actually took me to Washington, to New York City. I'm staying in a hotel doing all these radio interviews. And all of a sudden I get the phone call. Your tour's over. Canceling King, all that stuff. The book's just not hot anymore. The story's not hot. We're done. They pulled the plug. That was it. Wow. That's how they work. You're not in control of anything. You think you're in control of something, you're not. Even when your name's on it, even when your project, they control everything. And if you try to be independent, and they'll just pull the plug on you. And for them, 250,000. You say 250,000. 50,000 went to that guy. By the time I ended up paying taxes, I think I had maybe $180,000 of that. That goes quick in New York City. Anybody thinks, oh, you made a lot of money. No, I didn't. I still had bills to pay and all that. 180 grand doesn't go very far. And next thing you know, you're out of money. Yeah. And the book didn't sell, so there's no royalty checks coming in. And that's how publishing houses own you. That's how movie studios own you. Nobody's in control of anything. The people who have the money control everything, whether it's my book, the movie concept, or if I'm a congressperson, my politics. Money controls everything. The only way that you're ever going to change that is to take the money out of stuff. And that's what's important about what we're doing here, because I'm sure, you've done this enough so that you have an income coming in, but, you're not going to be challenging the payroll of the salary of the CEO of CBS News. But the beauty of this is that because you're in control, you get to decide what content you want to put on, and hopefully it takes off. I mean, not just you, but I mean everybody. Hopefully, everybody who challenges authority. And again, to the American people out there, the only way that we're going to turn the corner on this is to seize the power away from the moneyed establishment, the blob, because what keeps the blob alive is money. And I mentioned that.
Yeah.
The only way to get rid of the blob is you got to cut off the money from the blob, and then the blob dies. It's like finding a cancerous tumor. Remove the blood cell flow to it, and the cancerous tumor dies. It can't sustain itself without that blood. The blob can't sustain itself without the money. And that's why it's important for things like this to be happening.
Well, yeah. Amen to that, Scott Ritter. And for those of you out there who want to support me financially, there is a way to help me out on Patreon. As Scott mentioned, I don't make a huge income from this particular channel. I think a lot of times some of the content here is, shall we say, throttled down a little bit from where it could be, even though I keep getting more subscribers, mostly because I have Ritter on. That's why. I mean,
I'm the worst business decision you've ever made.
People want to see Ritter. They don't want to see me. So, Scott, anything going on for the holidays? You're doing any speaking engagements? You're just laying low for a while? You're writing another book? I mean, what's going on in the world of Scott Ritter?
I am writing another book. I mean, I think the
breaking news here. Scott Ritter's writing another book.
There it is, The Scud Hunters. So the story about my wartime experience hunting scuds during the Gulf War.
Nice. I remember Scuds. That was in the news all the time. Those Scud missiles. They were always talking about this. I didn't know what a Scud was, and then every day you're hearing about those Scuds. So
you got reporters that got the name Scud Stud, and we're all sitting back there going, "He's just reporting on it. We're hunting them. We're the studs." We were doing it in secrecy. But anyways, it's a cool story. I'm working on that. But this week, I think tomorrow I fly to Washington, D.C. On Thursday, it's the 35th anniversary of the signing of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, which is the topic of my book, Disarmament Time of Perestroika. So there's there you go. Yeah. There's a reunion lunch, and they're going to have a senior U.S. government arms control official speak at the lunch to talk about stuff. And then that night, the most important part is all the people that are in that book that I talk about.
Yep, there it is.
We're all getting together for a dinner and a poker game. And so we're having our own little reunion. So that's going to be fun. Then Friday, I have some meetings that should be interesting. And then I come home. I have a book signing event in Bethlehem, the Bethlehem Town Library on December 16th. And then I'm going home. I'm going to go visit my parents over between Christmas and New Year's. They're in their 80s, so gotta check in. And I want to check. It's not gotta do it. Want to do it. That'll be fun. And then we move into the new year, and we'll see. Hopefully, this book's being picked up in a couple of languages, so there might be some international touring going on in relation to the book. There's a big speaking engagement for you in the New York City area, January 15th at the Russian Samovar. And you can go on their website, russiansamovar.com, get a ticket to it. But I'll be doing a speaking event about the book and stuff. So there's stuff going on, but there's also going to be a lot of time just for family and sitting around the Christmas tree. I put up my Christmas lights last night. My electric bill is going to go tripled, but because I'm one of those idiots that why put up one string of lights when you can put up 50?
You're like with Chevy Chase, right?
Chevy Chase, that's it, man. Well, no, there's some neighbors out there that have outperformed me, but so I'm not going to quite get into that. But my wife was just laughing because I put some up there and I'd come out, look at them. We actually had to go to the store and I buy more lights. She's like, why? I said, I need more.
All right. On that note, it's a great way to end this. I may talk to you before Christmas, so I don't know. But if I don't, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But there's a good chance, something else is going to be in the news, and I'm going to need the Ritter perspective to help build this channel some more. So
collapse your business model, because you'll build the channel but suppress the they'll
well, as soon as they see the name Scott Ritter, it's like Twitter. Oh crap! Oh, but maybe I can get Elon, on my side, because he seems to have a way, with this. I was going to ask you a Twitter question, but we don't have time right now with all
still banned. I'm still banned.
Yeah, just but that'll be for maybe the next video. Sure. We could talk about all the information that they want you to know about. And in any event, Scott, thanks again, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
All right, you too.